insanity. I've got this manic intrinsic cataclysmic resistance baked into my substance, feasting on the sustenance of my chemicals brain imbalance that leads to having to find a perfect balance between manic maniac and black biracial bisexual depressed artist. So, we're here for catharsis. And the normal way to start this would be me giving you the definition of insanity, but that by definition is insanity. It's a sort of circular calamity of collapsing mental galaxies. And it's here we find ourselves in the narrative of today's rhyming-based personal story. The story is all I'm here to tell. We'll dwell for a spell in my elaborative well as I'll tell a tale I'll expound and expel with sounds from my foray into the profound. I'll round the edges so you can swallow this limerick-based message. I'll be regressing and caressing a narrative dressing as I confess my subconscious messing into a blessing I have found in finding mental health. This is just a story. And you can understand it right if you just listen. You see, how we learn is through stories, and whether it's despair or glory, this one's just a story. So, right after 1963, the Civil Rights Act tried for the possibility of mental health equality, integrating into a system, though, already built on barbaric fallacies. Mental facilities formed to bring normality at any and all costs to human decency. The first frontal lobotomy comes for free if you can't toe the line of complacency, and that's back when America even pretended to be trying to care about the mentality of the mentally unhealthy. First, let's understand the whole system is built on racist conundrums, and in 1840 the American census confirms them. Drapetomania. It's dropped in like an addendum. That is the desire to be free, and that will send them to the loony bin. It's just a racist referendum to a bill that comes due before you lend them. Insanity used to be the pathological intent to escape from slavery. In 1840, the census was basically a prescription for the maintenance of captivity and the continued denial of black human rights without a fight. The stormlight exposes the chinks in the armor, while the mental health system saunters from abusive to full neglectful wander. Under the plea of normalcy, being black or being free becomes lunacy, and the machine was never updated. It was just repurposed, not desegregated. We just conflated whiteness with being integrated. We sedated the creative, we quieted the elated, we demonized the frustrated, and moved to imprison anyone not white related while never addressing the issue. The tissue and sinew of American fabric, full stop, lacks the ability to face its fact of a reactive fear of black. Detracting from the conversation any psychological relation to a system that is not made for them. Replacing the sin of physical ostracization with a system of slavery-based incarceration. You can skim the top, and you can see the list of cops stopping, frisking, and redistricting a whole culture to a capitalistic prison vultures when half the cats just need to sit in the chair and chat about their moms. Change comes in stutter steps and regrets, and it comes in connecting concepts, fears and tears, and looking at the man in the mirror, although that brings sneers from peers who were taught that a black man shouldn't cry. It's a lie taught from a colonized mind. Unwind the sublime crime of trying to do it on your own. I was taught to be alone, to find a home in myself, and reshelf every emotional trauma in a box called I Don't Wanna. In a closet named emotional drama, doored up in a house once named drip your sleep and coffee for 2 weeks, get that job or are you weak, 4 days awake, no sleep, I can no longer cry, only weep. I can no longer cry, only weep. Let's get this elephant out of the room. All right. You need answers to the questions that I've brought up, so here we go. My dad is black, and my mom is white. That means the world doesn't always see me as black, but the world has never entertained for a goddamn second the thought if I was white. I have bipolar disorder. The psychotic tendencies. That means the world can be the most wonderful place, or it can be hell. Sometimes it can be both with some pretty hallucinations, and they say it's all in your head. You see, that's the misconception with mental disorders, right? Is your head isn't, it's a part of you, it's all of you. When bipolar takes over, it takes over your body, your mind, your time, your moments, proponents, empathies, sympathies, frivolities, savagery, propensities, parts, pursuits are all low-hanging fruit, the feeling, the fruition of the freeing of your mind. I also have ADD, which means that I'm bored speaking this way. I'm now gonna go back to rhyme. Not all the time, sometimes, not now. I think I've been moving this conversation, and I've been fishing in a lake through discussion, through derision. This is just a story over rhymes and prepositions. You'll understand it right if you just listen. You see, this one's just a story, right? You can understand it if you listen. You see, how we learn through stories, and from despair to all the glory. This is just a story. Mania. And I've only been awake for 5 days at this point. I find a point to the sound of no sleep. It's the creep of the scream and the sound at the back of the mind. You see, time for sleep would be a tether. It's hard to stay sane in this weather. Obedience is better. I once sacrificed my life for the price of my salvation. Perception was askew. I flew through giving any of me at all of the moments, and the moments have passed slow like stones through a kidney. Slow and sharp. I played my harp as best as I can, but I'm a man without any fingers, so I tried to be a singer, but the smoke lingers and it chokes down my notes a few creases. We always try to freeze time, but see, we hold back the line, we lack the ability, so like monkeys, oh wow. When I was little, we would play games like with super duper airplanes, but other kids wouldn't play by the rules, so they would act like fools, and I just choose to play alone, to write my own damn chords for this song. But then there was her, and if I was a million tears, I would run down her face every day, just in hopes that part of me could flow inside, to understand the pain of each word as it worked its way outside, inside. I breathe the smoke. I smoke for the separation and pleasure it gives. It lives in my lungs and it helps me die. I once lived before insomnia. It keeps my creativity awake as it bakes the brain. My grains ingrains the brains, the PBRs, the stars in my vision, and decisions are for the sober. Over and over in my head in time, I sleep sometimes. So no time is better than now. Never land somehow. I must become that Peter Pan art. No sleep means art. And my heart drains like sweat from my body. I wipe it off and keep going. Energy into a black hole void and coursing. My work sapping my force. Blood courses through the veins of the weak and the strong, but it is long gone from the dead. You see, their bed is permanently made. Rest to never fade. Debt's already paid, yet we work for that check. Endlessly checking our day planners for our next exit to the next open to the ending. We are lending our lives to our day-to-day life, and it is not giving back. We are trapped in servicing our services. I'm a little busy, he says, and he pays for what you get. Also, never forget to floss. But what is the loss when you toss a life up? What is the cost of forgetting to live? It is today, the only day, right now, and he looks in my black shaggy garments and my bully face with disdain. He just used that moment of his life judging me, and my voice trembles in my memories. It moves to the vibrato of a song that can never be sung, that reminds me of words like seize the day and not burning pigs. It figures my thoughts never come out in full sentences like when I say you should live. Forgiveness, that is another thing we left to ignorance. We make real substance out of every grievance, making everyone pointed through. The slightest annoyance, all I'm saying is give peace a chance, and at a glance I realize my teeth need a good flossing, a slow, bloody crossing of a string against my numb. It is pain until numb, and Listerine cleans and burns. She churns in her desire. She savors in her mind. Scratching her head softly, she asks if I'll start the car, meaning if I say yes, I must tread through 5-degree snow. And I don't want to go, I want to stay forever, but leather chase so, and I think I'm going to get off this horse. Of course, I must ride on and on through the cold, holding my arms. And I am still not yet the worst. Did you know that every few seconds someone is getting raped or murdered or beaten? And I'm reliving this concept where you try to get to bed. Your head's shacked and racked anytime I try to lay it down. But this kind of thought has nothing to do with me, but it is my responsibility lately. And momentarily, it's my bubble to burst. You see, I thirst to be a loner, looking for honor, but no one can control, for I am the captain of the ship. And if you listen to Dave, you understand. I need answers, questions, truth that'll be your eyes I can see bits of we floating past the scenery to become nothing more than memories. Like the sun, it leaves under hills our dreams, ends kill my means. But what it means is we're getting lost in me's or eyes or me's. I hope I find you feeling healthy. It's so crazy how it feels tonight. Right, wrong, ashes to ashes, all fall down. And if you listen to Dave, you understand. If you listen to Dave, you understand. If you listen to Dave, you understand. If you listen to others, rinse, rescind, pretend deaf to the problem, blind to the end. They say I'll do it right if I ever just listen. They say I'll do it right if I ever just listen. What day is it? It's 3 days away. I haven't slept in 3 days. See, I was blessed with the skill of competency. It's the way I sort of deconstruct the world around me, and I place it in a simile, and then I repeat what I was instructed proficiently. My brain wasn't constructed perfectly, and when you've been awake for several days, you sleep. And when it comes with a sense of urgency. It causes what you would call some inconsistency to my work resume. It's just a story. I can't understand it right now. I know how we learn it's two stories, but we don't learn. And this seems a lot more despair than glory. Is this a story? I'd say there's some delay between when I say I'm gonna parlay to my job today. You don't know when you're gonna sleep. You don't know when you're gonna wake up. And I was set up in a black male presenting body, and society only guarantees me one line of financial stability. I must do physical labor if I want to do anything, or quite honestly, I find myself in the incarcerate. Quite honestly, I'm an intellectual Nancy. I'm more of a nerd of frivolous fantasy, a connoisseur of humanity. I'm more of a professor of the imaginary. And if I can't express myself intellectually or audibly, the work probably gives me terrible fucking anxiety. But being scared is never manly. That is perfunctory partitions to a life without decision, and anything different is met with friction, to not meeting a stereotype built from racial derision and superstition. They say I'll do it right if I just listen. But my ears have been yet to be christened in the babbling baptism called revision. It's a historical division of strategically created traps tied to those who have no shoes, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. Look, society will break under this pressure. Its levers set in place long before I had the grace to find my place on the face of this world. And I have twirled the dance, taking any and every chance to find a space of the same. I've changed my profession to fight the depression of never doing it quite right. And in spite of my best efforts, I have to fit the contours of the crack fissures that never delivers anything but pain and societal slivers from a mentality that steals and withers. It took me 35 years to decolonize my mind. And the way it remembers, and not just find myself in a forest of hotep timbers, half-rejected sinners, and the systematically enforced black male box of pain and embers. My life was just tinder for the flames of the capitalistic view of race and gender, labeled as a pretender anytime I didn't enter with a loud, swinging, engorged member. I've never been a defender of misogyny, but moving actively to disfigure the stereotypes that we've all engendered to be the center of our society's nerve center. I'm not left. I'm a cultural blender, and I'm ready for it to be burned down, changed, or dismembered. Please remember, I tried to play the game, and the name was feel the pain and hide it. To be, never look and find it. To find your place and be trapped inside it. From vision to the blinded. I will remind you, I've tried it. I've been on the inside of every tried and true moratorium of capitalistic vulturism. From being the grease in the wheels that turned them to the kindling on the fire of the engines that burned them. Uncertain of any option, I have risen and been and fallen through every industry in the American diaspora. I've been a business owner in the heat plant in Florida. I've also been a government IT admin. I was a bartender to those drinking away their sin. I've been a janitor cleaning bins. Got that job from a friend. Worked as a locksmith, a social media consultant telling people when to press send, a paralegal for a nonprofit, ran a stage production company till our partner stole our profit. I've been a plumber, a carpet cleaner, a door-to-door meat seller, a construction worker, a Dana mining searcher, doorman for a homeless shelter, security standing lurker, roofing houses in summer swelter, a parking lot attendant in negative degrees called inclement weather, I've worked for a printing company selling winter sweaters. I was a telehelp guy who was always told he could do better. I was unfettered from a job as a stagehand when my demand to sleep couldn't keep the current call. And I styled as an accountant when no one could account for the hallucinations that had them politely remove me from my station. My relation to the music persuasion meant consternation when I couldn't handle their cocaine fixation. This is just a small piece of my career's reputation. I only address all of that situation with the stipulation for you to understand the situation. When one flows from mania's machinations to depression's suboptimal intrepidations, there's a delineation of output to conservation. You see, you're never aware of the creation of your mind, your body, and your soul's emotion, frustration, or motivation. The downs aren't a placation of emotional situations, but a life that has no memory of elation. Joy is as far as damnation, and every failure you've ever made is fresh ammunition for your own destruction. Yeah, there's a thing called self-medication, and it's often used to answer the changing psychological operation, regulating the administration of your feelings to a more rum and coke-based foundation. You see, people with bipolar don't often have the stimulation for the right neurons firing from civilization. And not being white causes complications to the implications of your actions. Black males, we cause intimidation in almost all white cultural institutions. Thus, they institutionalize anything comprised outside the lines of colonialism, reinforcing the schism through even the system of the 9 to 5, or keeping alive the dress code, or the overwork load, or the roads that lead to a white normalized culture. It's a rupture in the structure, pouring from vulgar imbalance, burning in bloodied countenance. It runs through the historical substance of the very water we drink. It flows like the ocean and down to the deep, 11 days away, no sleep. I can only cry. I can only weep. Look. just a story. You can understand it right if you listen. You see, how we learn is through stories. And this was a story. We went through some despair. Went through some glory. It's just a story. To me, coming from you, friend is a 4-letter word. Now, not to speak untoward, but there is an absurd dichotomy between the strategy of building and an emotional deficit. You see, a divided house can't stand, yet we demand the constant command of a strong, stable black man. It's canned calls from stalls of observers, never observing the constant conundrum of hindering hypocrisy. They are fallacies built for the functionality of only the fervently wrong. This culture's song asked for diversity, while maladroitly confirming to normalcy. Simplicity in ignoring the melody, tuning out the frequency to mute anything exceptionally different. And I have spent my time as the dregs of this society. You see, there's actually a few different definitions in the homeless category. And I've run a gamut from the time I was 16. See, sleeping on people's couches, that is one sort of thing. It's might not look like homeless, but it's another shade of the scene. Insomnia is blocking you from taking ends from means. It's just another form of begging, panhandling your friends for a moment to catch a chance at dreams. And the seams of your societal network begin unraveling, traveling for years through your list of peers of house to house. The mouse of your friend group, the endless loops of being the unwanted guest. And this is the best of homeless possibilities. Sleeping in your car, that's the next kind of ability. After your friends and families leave, you weave through the streets, trying to find anything that meets a place to park with shade for a week because it's 100 degrees even when night's at its peak. You're reeking of sweat, sleep, neck wrecked from fitting yourself on a tiny shelf of backseat, from heat to -8. Will you debate if you can't afford the reward of running heat in your car so you don't freeze to death, or breath freezing over your lips as you try to come to grips with your morning shift and the rift between cold and starvation, salvation by standing by the warmth of a coffee station with endless sleep deprivation and no financial institution to stop the feeling of starvation? Please, just listen. Community is built from needs against degradation. The application to adjust for correlation is looking at causation coming through statistical manipulation. Try sleeping under underpass for any duration. You see, you're wrong in this situation for civilization under gestation. And we throw you out at any realization of difference through systematic subjugation. In 22 years, I've only spent 6 with anything you could call a stable living situation. Please listen. You see, when the hungry come together, everything must be food. And when the homeless come together, everything must be a home. And when the insane come together, everything must be crazy. For this has been my life. It's been my wife's life. Strife it's what they built in. It's in the intent. They take from the base of community, and it's not an accident. It is what they always meant. You see, my stint as an artist offers me to take my crazy the farthest, creating an outlet so I don't starve this part of me. But this is partially due to a path carved by those who love me. They came up with a strategy to get me medically in a place of comfortability to ask for help. I was diagnosed at 8, but staked in a system that can never relate to the debate between my mind and being alive. I didn't receive treatment until I was 35, and I strived in 30 years of sleepless chaos and confusion, lost in the delusion that I could do it myself. Please get help. Please get help. It's never that easy, and it is more action than believing. It's more giving than receiving, and it is more trying than retrieving. But it is less hurting. It's more healing. It's more change than just conceiving. It's more truth than constant deceiving. Completing the path to help might feel insurmountable, and your pains uncountable, your thoughts never understandable. But I promise these things can be manageable. To talk to others makes your feelings tangible, no longer self-eating cannibal, standing in the mandible of your own unsurpassable, life-destroying personal scandal. There's a chance to handle whatever it is. Isn't the chance worth the struggle? Subtle nudges and rebuttals from a qualified medical professional? Yeah, some of them. And it can be awful. But it's always better than find yourself at the end of a bottle. I'm now on medication and relational therapy. I'm reliving the memory boxes trapped in the attic. It's peace of mind instead of static. It's breaking habits instead of addict and living as yourself instead of traumatic, manic, morose. It's a ghost put to fleet. The surface of the deep. It's the patch when the blood seeps. It's new finish on the antique and it's options for the bleak. A chance to cry, not only weep. It's keeping the truth from allegory. Remember, this is just a story. Maybe something to help you sleep. Reap the heap of rewards of not being stuck in a destructive dance. Take a chance to stop the scream's painful pounding its way to the every end. You can hear it if you listen. Insomnia is my closest friend. Cake, a 4-letter word. I think this is where we take a break and reset the stage. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.